we're in Doha. How are you today? Good? Okay. I'm super excited to be here. 5 years ago, I went to my first Startup Grind event. It was in New York City, and Nir Eyal was talking about his newly published book, not yet a bestseller, Hooked. And I remember I loved the event format so much because of the networking, because of the casual atmosphere. I hope we can reproduce it here in Doha. And last month, Indika called me and he said, Agata, we're doing this thing again here. We're doing Startup Grind. Doha, would you like to join us for this event? I didn't have to think twice. My name is Agata Braia. I'm a user experience consultant and a startup mentor. And currently I'm part of the digital team at Qatar Foundation. And before I introduce our guest and the topic of tonight's fireside chat, let's welcome the man who made it possible for us to be here, Dr. Tejinder Singh, who is the chapter director of Startup Grind Doha.
So thank you guys. I'm sure all of you are excited and looking forward to start of this session where we have Haris, who has been known to me for quite many years. We want to listen to his story. We're looking forward to listen to how he used to see his AA, which could be an exemplary example for all of the startup ambitious souls that we have around here to follow that or maybe pick up some words of wisdom out there. But before we start with that, let me all thank you for making it despite beautiful weather but raining altogether, traffic jams. I'm sure all of you must have struggled reaching out here. But it's great to see an audience when we have a session. Before I begin, let me just thank our sponsors, Qatar Sports Tech and Kadak Shop, who made it possible for us to do this event and bring all that knowledge sharing with you guys. To mention partners like 360 Bikes, I Love Qatar, thank you so much, Qatar Living, thank you, and Digital Incubation Center, MOTC, who has been with us in such kind of endeavors, has been an exciting journey, and we look forward to making it even more exciting in the times to come. And the greatest time goes to Workington, who has given us this opportunity to host it here. They've been wonderful hosts, and I'm sure you all are going to enjoy this evening. So looking forward to that, and over to Agata. Thank you so much, all of you.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Ali from Qatar Sports Tech, who also has a couple of things to share with us.
I guess I'll stand up. I'm not staying here for too long. Salam everyone. I'm Ali. I'm the new operations manager at Qatar Sports Tech. We're a sponsor at this event. And we're very happy to contribute to this ecosystem, to support the entrepreneurs, especially sports tech entrepreneurs, wanting to work in Doha from abroad, or from Doha going abroad to learn the techniques and different types of frameworks to work as a startup and to scale. And it's an honor to be here to learn from Haris's story. I think he's one of a kind in opening up the Doha ecosystem, setting a new benchmark. And so, if anyone's curious to learn more about QST, you can reach me at ali@startupbootcamp.org, or you can come to our office at the Sports Accelerator at Aspire Zone. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, So our guest tonight is not a stranger to the local startup scene, but what he and his team, what they have achieved is something quite amazing. They're one of the first Qatari startups that made it to the Series A round of funding. And their solution, Medi, has over 150,000 monthly users. Let's welcome Haris Aradi. So, Haris, welcome to Startup Grind. You're the founder of the biggest doctor appointment booking platform in Qatar, and you have achieved an amazing success. But this is not a success that happens overnight, right? So I wanna go back to 2014 when you're a Carnegie Mellon fresh grad and you decide to work on your own project? What triggered that decision?
Okay. Well, it's not like we have like really massive inspiration story. I think what we started is that back in 2014, we were taking this class project at Carnegie Mellon University, and part of the course was like a lean startup launchpad class. So we had to go talk to customers, come up with an idea, get traction, and actually present an idea. So we were not really thinking of launching a proper startup. Honestly, our goal was to just get an A in the class. Like that's what we were looking for. Right? But when we were doing our final presentation in the classroom, we presented an idea, we had a bare minimum prototype that was working. And then I think a day or two later, we were published in Doha News. We didn't actually know about it back then. And then out of the blue, we had like a crazy traffic on our website. And we're like, okay, like there's something more we can do rather than just thinking of a class project. We did get an A in the class, so we were very happy about that. And then since then, I think me and my co-founders, we got together, just formalized like how can we build this as a business. Then for about a year or two, we just tried to figure it out and try to nail down the business model, what really works, what didn't work. And then in 2016, we properly incorporated as a company, got our first round of funding, a bit small check from friends and family, and then just kept going. And then in 2017, I think we got funded by 500 Startups. We became the first company from Qatar to be part of their Dojo program. And then we've been scaling up since then.
Okay, that's amazing. We're going to try to break down that journey into small pieces, and we're going to try to extract all the good advices that you can share with our audience. Are there any startups in the audience? Yes. Yeah? Okay, great. So, many startups pivot along the way, and they change their business models. For example, Slack used to be a gaming company, and in 18 months they pivoted and they changed into a multi-billion-dollar company. So, was Medi always supposed to be Medi, or did you change your model, your vision along the way?
That's an interesting question. So we always wanted to be the product for helping patients find like healthcare information. It was not necessarily doctors, was not necessarily clinics. So we did not really pivot from the original vision, but we did have our business model kept evolving over time. So initially, we just wanted to build a directory for people to find healthcare information. And then once people got to the website and were like, okay, there are 100 doctors in this city, how do we know which one is a better one? We're like, okay, let's put reviews and ratings. So we kind of evolved into that part of the product. Once we did that, we realized, okay, people really like this doctor, but the next part of the funnel, which is helping them making an appointment, was still a bit of a challenge. So we then added a booking process to it, right? So we gradually evolved our business model to make it more comprehensive, and it's always based on getting feedback from customers, iterating over the business model, and trying to nail down what actually works. So our pricing structure, the way we operate as a company, our logistics kept evolving over time, but we did not have that massive pivot that you're talking about as Slack was a gaming company moved to a chat thing. Yeah, I think it was a really cool, lucky thing that happened for them. But yeah, I think we kept evolving based on the market feedback that we keep getting. Yeah.
Okay, I'm curious about this initial evolution that you had. I know that now you're based, Medi Qatar is based in QSTP, right? Did you follow the acceleration and incubation programs, or did you jump directly into incorporating your own company?
Yeah, so I mean, we're glad throughout our journey through Medi, we had a lot of help from all these different incubation centers. So initially we were incorporated as a DIC, Ministry MOTC. So that's where we met Indica, and Indica was super helpful connecting us with different mentors and networks, and we did there for a while. And then we moved to QSTP, we got incubated there. And while we were there, we applied for funding for 500 startups, and we became part of their Dojo program. So we went through 3 different incubation centers at different parts of journeys as we kept scaling up. So yeah, there was a lot of help from the entire ecosystem. I don't think we would be here without MOTC and QSTP actually helping us. And they're still helping us along the way.
Okay. And did you have a network of advisors, of mentors at the initial stage of the project?
Yeah, so I mean, we did occasionally talk to people who were domain experts in that, but we did not really formalize it. So one thing that we realized, we were super picky on the kind of people that we wanted to work with. Because once we quickly realized that Medi is something we really want to give our lives to, like working crazy hours, we want to make sure that it's really growing fast as much as possible. So we want to be very selective of what kind of people we're trying to get advice from. So now we have a formal advisory, a team of advisors, and they're domain experts. So we have a person who's an engineering advisor, He ran a top-notch price comparison product in UAE. We have a marketing advisor who ran operations in Qatar. So they're very domain experts in what they do, and we advise them and get their counsel on how we solve particular problems. So yeah, one advice I would give is like find people who are really good at something and try to use them as much as possible to get advice on that. And be very picky on what kind of people that you're working with. Some might be good, but that might not be good for you. You need to have a great chemistry with them and really like how they think about your business that can really solve your problems.
And you actually, I think, formalized that recently, right? So you have an official board of advisors.
Yeah. So they're shareholders in the company. We work with them on a weekly basis. They have access to our data, and we sit down and actually, like, it's very laser focused. Like, we did not like general advisors. We're not meeting them for the sake of it. It's like, do we have this burning problem? Like, for now, we have scaling issues. Our infrastructure is kind of getting a bit slow because we have so much traffic. So we're trying to figure out how do we scale it up for the next 500, a million users that we can occupy. So we're working with an engineering advisor who has exactly gone through that exact process. So his advice is everything is super relatable. Like, we can learn very quickly from that.
Okay, that's amazing. So Harris, recently you made the news, right? You made the headlines with great news that Medi has raised $2.5 million in Series A round for scaling up its operations in the UAE. And I'm curious, many people in the audience are interested in your fundraising approach. And some startups start to look for money from the very beginning without having a product, but it might be challenging because there is it's hard to establish trust with the investors. And some startups wait until they have a product, they have ownership, they have a lead, and then they can reach out. It gives them a position, a bit more powerful position. So how was it for Medi? Did you start from before having a product? Or did you have something already?
Yeah, so one thing that we did is like when we were part of the class project, as soon as we finished the class project, we had like a very good idea that what exactly that we want to build. So we went from an idea to public beta within 6-7 weeks. We're very quick to get that. And our entire idea was that we want to launch a product, and we understood that it's kind of broken, but we wanted to get quick feedback from the market so that we can keep evolving it. So let me tell you how naive were we. Like when we launched our product, we were like, okay, within the first, as soon as we're gonna launch the product, within the next few weeks, we're gonna have investors lined up, we're gonna meet them, and then 3 months later, we're gonna have our first round of funding closed. It took us 7 months to get our first meeting with an investor, right? And then it took almost 3 months after that to get a definitive answer from that investor that he's not investing. Right? So that's how painful the process is, and that's how naive were we on that. So there are different approaches on either we want to take money before having a product or after that. I would advise you should definitely have some sort of a product or traction in the market before you're trying to get funding, because as I said, it's very hard to build trust with investors. And once you go talk to investors, it's not like a transactional relationship. It's more like you meet them, you have to keep meeting them over several weeks, months, or years to build up like relations with them so that they feel comfortable like backing you. Like the investors that we have in our Series A, I've been talking to them for almost 3 years now, like with nurturing a different relationship with investors for them to be comfortable investing in that. So yeah, it takes a very long time.
And so tell me, who invested in Medi? Were these only VC funds, or you also reached out to angel investors? I think you've mentioned friends and family as your first investors, right? So who invested in Medi?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me like, how do I get VCs? Or this variant of that question is like, they don't have any VCs here. The point is like, there's like an entire world outside of VCs. As you said, friends and family is a good way to get your first initial traction. You don't have like now formal angels are forming. Doha Tech Angels is one big one right there, but you also have a lot of executives or VPs in the company who are in that space, who understand that market very well. So they're a good source of like getting investment. So for us it was like, reaching out to angels in country who are not formally angels, but they like the space, they want to get involved in that. So those were the first source of capital, and then QSDP was the first institutional fund that actually invested in us. And then it was 500 startups, and then formal angel groups, family offices, and then we got the actual VC funding in this round of funding. So we have like 6-7 different various types of investors who actually invested in us.
Okay. So you developed your MVP in 7 weeks, right? So you had a product, but did you have any traction when you were looking for VCs?
Yeah, so as I said, so when we launched our product, we did not have any traction. We basically we're just talking to investors, they're like, okay, there's a website, there are 3 pages on that product and pretty much nothing on it, right? And this is an advice I tell a lot of people, that what I see is like people spend like a year or even more launching their first version of product because they think it's not perfect. And I believe there's actually no such thing as perfect. I think there's this really cool advice from Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. It says, if you're not embarrassed by your first version of your product, you launched it too late. Right? And even till date, there are parts of Medi that we're still embarrassed by because it's still not completely nailed on. But the entire idea is that we want to get feedback from customers before we invest so much time and resources in building it, right? So yes, we had our first MVP in 6 weeks, but we kept iterating it. Every month we were doing something new because we had talked to 50 customers, we had talked to 2 clinic managers who did not like this, and we tried to nail that. So, I mean, my advice, one thing would be like, if you're like first-time founder, follow this lean startup methodology, get that business model canvas nailed down, and keep iterating on your product and your business model as you go along, and keep talking to customers. I think that's probably the one big thing. Like, a lot of people just spend so much time just writing code or getting freelancer or getting designer to work on the product, but they completely forget actually constantly talking to customers to actually get their feedback. And they are the biggest thing that you should do. Still now, I feel like we did not spend enough time talking to customers, but when we launched our first version, we had talked to over 100 doctors, but we still think we did not talk enough. I think we could have talked to even more and trying to get even more feedback from them.
Okay, and so you were raising money in different countries, like at least from investors from different countries. Where was it the easiest? Like, do you have any preferences in terms of markets globally where to raise funding?
No, I wouldn't say it's the easiest. I think one thing is like, if you're trying to talk to international investors, it's very important to show them that local investors in your neighborhood are actually investing in you because it shows like the vote of confidence, right? So we had a couple of angels who invested in us, and then we had QSTP who invested in us, and then it was 500 startups who saw that so many other people have invested in this company, let's go invest in that. And then it helped get that international investors from New York and Turkey and Abu Dhabi who actually came in and invested in us. Right, so I wouldn't say it's easiest. I think people shouldn't look at it from like what's an easier investor to go at. Different investors have different preferences, they have different appetites, they have different mandates on which geographies they have to invest in, which industries they have to invest in. So it's all about how much traction you have and what kind of chemistry you have between your company and the investor. And then, like, there's so many different variables that you have to look at before you realize like that's the right fit.
Okay, and when you're approaching an investor and you're asking for money, you need to know the worth of your company, right? So how did you know for how much of your business to trade and for how much money? How did you make that valuation?
Yeah, I mean, in early days, I mean, it's a very difficult thing to actually do valuations because you don't have cash flows, you don't have proper forecasts, you don't have any historical data to do the traditional DCF analysis to figure out the valuation. I think in the early days, it's more about if you're talking to mature investors, they have invested in enough companies to kind of benchmark you against a portfolio of their company. So based on that and the market trend and what's the current benchmark looking like, based on that, we kind of raise our funding. I wouldn't spend too much time thinking way too much about valuation as long as it kind of makes sense and it's the right investor for you. I think people should go for it. Of course, you don't want those ridiculous deals where the early stage investor has taken 60-70% of your company for a very small amount of money, and I have seen that mistake happen so many times that it's ridiculous, and people should avoid making mistakes. I mean, my advice, there's a whole session on valuation and analysis. Try to do a convertible note, keep it simple, talk to right investors, and I think should be fine. I wouldn't spend too much time on valuations in the early days.
And how did you know what were the expectations from investors when you were reaching out? Did you have a researched business plan? Did you have a clear strategy about the next investment round, or did you have a market validation feedback from advisors? What did you have with you?
So the first time we talked to investors, we had nothing but like 5 slides and a bunch of links to our product, which actually, one of the demos, it broke in front of the investor, so that was like amazing learning there, right? So no, initially when we were talking to investors, we were super naive. We did not know what a business model is. We did not know how to do financial analysis or forecasting for that sim. So we learned along the way. A lot of hard lessons happen. But yeah, as you grow, mature, you get historical data, then you can actually build a better forecast and better business plan. But I think in the early days, like if you're doing your first round of funding, I wouldn't spend too much time doing 3-4 years of analysis. I think you should be looking at just your next 5-6 months of analysis and trying to figure out what metrics you were looking at, right? So expectations is something we learned that way. Like for instance, the first time an investor asks, okay, you're raising X amount of funding, I'll give it to you right now. What are you going to do with it? And our answer is like, we'll grow. And he's like, okay, grow to what? And we're like, we don't know, right? And that was a pretty bad answer, as you would understand. So we didn't understand, okay, we'll grow by 10x. And then we went back and he's like, no, you cannot grow 10x. The fundamental economics are completely broken. Unit economics don't scale. You don't have that much market penetration. The population is not big enough to do that. So there's a lot of learnings, a lot of feedback that you get from the investors. Then you kind of iterate and figure out and fine tune your business model. So yeah, it takes a while. And then, as you said, like if you have advisors early on, we did not. They could guide you along the way. And then lately, the entire startup ecosystem has matured so much that there's so much online resources that you can use from Y Combinator and so many other resources that a lot of learnings can happen all the time. But back in the day when we were starting, we were not aware of those things. It took us a while to realize, okay, there's a lot of things that you can just Google online and just try to figure out. So yeah, this business model and stuff, we kind of did it a little bit later on. Like, at least in the early days, if you're talking to an angel investor and he's asking you for 7-8 years of forecast, he's probably not the right fit for you. You're too early for that to even think about, because even you don't know what your business is going to look like 6 months from now if you're in the very early days of the company, because you're still just trying to figure out your pre-product market fit. You have to talk to so many customers, trying to understand how things work.
You know, when we go to TechCrunch, for example, and we read the headlines, it seems that fundraising is a super easy thing, because you just see all these startups that that raise money, and some people might think that, you know, once you have that good idea, you just set up a crowdfunding page, or you send a couple of emails, and the millions of dollars just keep on flowing. But that's not the reality, is it? So tell me, how was it for Mehdi? Like, how much effort did you invest in the fundraising part?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing people need to understand is that we're still in the Middle East, so we're still like very early days of what the startup ecosystem looks like. I would say like where MENA is right now is like, we're like what Silicon Valley looked like in the late 80s, right? So we're still very far behind on that. So VCs are forming up, more funds are coming in, but we're still very much far away from that mature ecosystem. So it's very unlikely that you can go raise money without any revenue that's happening. Investors don't have that kind of appetite for risk at the moment. It's building up gradually, but it's going to take a very long time before that happens. Now, answering the question of how much effort it is, it's more or less like a full-time job to actually go fundraise, because it takes so much time. Like, I was looking at my funnel, like how many investors we talked to for the Series A. It was more than 150 investors that we talked to. And it's not just one talking, it's like you're talking to every single investor multiple times. So it's like several emails, several pitch decks, video calls, meetings in person, looking at analysis and everything. Like, it took us almost more than 12 months to actually close our entire round, including the legal and everything. But yeah, it's a full-time job. Like, raising this institutional round of funding in this part of the world is not easy. It takes a very long time to do that.
Did you have a dedicated person on the team to do that, or everybody was participating in parallel to their day-to-day activities?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. No, I mean, so it was mainly me involved, but the reason I could be involved is because I had a fantastic team who was taking care of every other thing from an operations side. And that's a very important thing. Like, you need to have a pretty good team who can focus on operations while you go fundraise and actually talk to investors, because it takes a big toll from your time to actually talk to investors, because it's a whole, as I said, a full-time job, and you need to be laser focused on talking to them and actually nurturing the entire fund and talking to them over time.
And what do you think? What was that final thing, that final aspect of Mehdi that convinced the investors to invest in your company? Was it recommendations you had from other people, or maybe you have proven yourself, you have proven your product? What was the most important thing that made them say, yes, we'll invest in you?
Yeah, so I don't think there's like one single thing that made them invest. I think there are like multiple different things, right? So yeah, one thing is like you need to have consistent traction that's happening over the phase of 12 or 2 years. Like, you need to be growing anywhere from 15 to 30% month over month. You need to have strong financials that have happened in the past. You probably need to have previous round of investors who have invested in your company and have actually seen the returns that have happened. So I don't think there's like a single answer to that thing, but it's like, it takes a lot of things. There's so many different variables when you're talking to investors. I mean, the reason we talk to 150 investors is not because everyone said no, it's because we're not the right fit for them. A lot of investors don't invest in GCC. A lot of investors don't invest in health tech. A lot of investors don't invest in Series A level rounds. So, right, you need to find the right fit. So we have to find investors who are okay with investing in health tech, who are okay with investing in GCC, who are okay investing in small ticket size. Like we had investors who were like, your round size is too small for us to invest because they invest in much bigger ticket sizes. And then you also have the other way, like you have investors who invest in very small ticket sizes who cannot invest in you. So it takes a very long time to find the right fit that makes sense. So again, you have to do a lot of research, and that's why it's a very long and arduous process of actually getting the right investor on board.
I came across a statistic from Forbes that investors, venture capitalists, fund only 2% of the opportunities they review. So that means that 49 out of 50 opportunities is not funded, and that means that the rejection is an unavoidable part of the whole process. So how did you deal with rejection?
Yeah, I mean, I think doing a startup is more like an emotional roller coaster, right? So you have your highs and lows all the time. I mean, I think the most painful would be like if you're talking to an investor for a very long time and towards the end they decided not to invest because you've spent so much time and resources and you have committed so much effort into getting them, it doesn't happen, it's very likely to happen. So yes, and I think for being startup, it's not that you're getting rejections from investors, you're getting rejections from so many other things, especially big customers who don't want to work with you because you're too small, so it's a big risk for them. You want to get these rockstar engineers on board, but they don't want to work with you because they're getting 10x that salary in Silicon Valley. You want to get this really top-notch advisor on board, but every other startup also wants to work with them. So rejection is like part of your DNA. You have to get okay with being rejected all the time. Like I think pretty much on a day-to-day basis, you're gonna keep rejecting all the time. So I think you just have to just build a muscle to actually just keep taking that.
So when an investor rejects you, do you still keep on building that relationship and following up when you make progress and you reach new milestones, or do you just discard them and find new ones and build new relations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one thing that you will see is like most investors are not going to give you a definitive answer, right? Because the best thing for them is like because they don't like rejecting anyone. Because if you think about it, you might come in and pitch to them now, you're not good, but you can become better 7, 8 months or a year down the line. So they don't want to reject and burn that bridge. Most of them will just not reply to you, or they might say like, not now, come back again later. So it depends on what kind of investor you're getting at. Some investors will be very candidly telling you that we cannot invest in you because you're against our mandate, we're only allowed to invest in these geographies, in these spaces, in these ticket sizes, so you don't align. But majority of the investors will give you good feedback. They're like, okay, your business model is not proven, your growth rate is not high enough, your unit economics don't scale yet. Come back to me when you have fixed those problems. So yes, I think investors is like over time you have to keep nurturing those relationships, either through emails, through phone calls, through monthly or quarterly updates. So yes, it takes a while. I mean, as I said, majority of the investors that we have right now, we've been talking to them for almost 2 years, and we've been nurturing those relationships with emails and a bunch of calls and emails before they feel comfortable investing in us.
So that's really a lot of information to process, because you said you had 150, right, investors, and you're following up multiple times. Do you have a special system for tracking that information? Do you have a CRM, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea, right? There should be a CRM for talking to investors. So for me, my approach was like building this really comprehensive Google spreadsheet, and we had but my point is, one advice that I give a lot of people is that you should treat talking to investors as how you would treat your sales pipeline. You need to be super meticulous and organized. Like if you have these big customers that you're talking to, you're going to have a sales pipeline that specific investors, because investors are getting cold emails all the time, right? The majority of them are not going to look at you. So the conversion rate from a cold email is super low. So you have to make it very tailored so that it makes it likely for them to click on that thing on their inbox among 100 other emails that they're getting, right? So you have to make it very personalized to what they like or what they don't like. So yes, cold emails definitely work. Again, conversion rate is very different. But yeah, if you can get a warm intro, please do that. But if you cannot, cold email is always a good way to go. But you have to spend time actually crafting the right message that clicks with them.
We talked earlier about advisors, and you just mentioned that having that introduction is quite valuable. And if we can get an introduction to an investor, it's much better than cold mailing. And I was wondering if you had any high-profile individuals that gave their stamp of approval on your project, and maybe that helped you in, building further relations.
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that you will realize, like as soon as you raise money from any investors, they will probably try to connect you in their network. So either they're going to open up doors to the customers that they know, to the new hires that you can make, or the other investors that they know. So I think for us it was like, we raised money from First Angel, he connected us with 3 other people, and 2 of them ended up investing, and then those 2 opened up connections to 5 other investors, and 1 of them ended up investing in them. So it's a connection that keeps happening from that perspective. And second thing is like, yes, it's very important for them to, keep connecting doors. And from stamp of approval, I think QSTP made a really big impact, because that was an institutional fund that actually invested in us. That helped us about 500 startups, which made it extremely easier for us to get the VCs in UAE and other regions to actually be open to actually talking to us and actually investing in us. So I think that was kind of a stamp of approval.
Another statistic I came across is that 60% of companies go out of business because of founder issues. And I was wondering if you have any tips how to keep the company aligned, how to have all people, aligned to that same vision and objective.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it all goes back to what kind of values and cultural values that companies have, right? So I mean, in our team, we always have disagreements, and some disagreements are extremely heated and intense. But again, it goes back to how does it help our customer get better? Because when you're working in an early stage startup, people are opinionated. People really want to make an impact to the product. They want a betterment for the company. They want a company to grow. So everyone's going to have very strong opinions, very harsh and brutal feedback. So it's important people are aligned along the culture values, because that means people are not hating each other. People just are criticizing the idea, and they want the best idea to win. I think that's what the aim is. So yes, conflicts happen all the time. We had ours, track of conflicts as well. Every company has that, but in the end, it goes back to what kind of culture values a company is aligned with. And if you align with that, it becomes easier to resolve those conflicts.
And you said that you launched your product quite quickly, and you come from you were all Carnegie Mellon students, right? So you had that technical background to develop the solution. Do you think this is a necessary? Do you think it's a necessary skill? Do you think that the core team should have a strong tech person, or maybe more?
I mean, one advice, the classic advice is that you should have a complementary skill set, right? So if you're a marketing person, get an engineering on board. If you're an engineer, get a business development person on board, and operational logistics. Depends on what kind of industry and business that you're going after. So if you're building a tech product, yes, having a technical co-founder makes life a lot easier. But again, I don't think that's a requirement. For sure, if you can have a technical co-founder, for sure go with it. But my advice would be just have a complementary, well-rounded skill set. One thing I see is 3 engineers, co-founders, and that's usually bad because they don't know what business to do. And then, or you have the complete opposite where 3 founders come from sales and marketing background and they don't know how to build a tech product, right? So you have these misalignment from that perspective. Either they try to outsource that, which may or may not work, depending on complexity of the product. But having a well-rounded team in the early days, yes, it's a very big skill set, and it goes a long way.
So who was part of the original Medi team? What skill sets did you have?
Yeah, so my background was in product management, marketing, and the other one was in engineering. But the point is, engineering was so complex. One was more focused on back end, the other one was focused on front end. And then one eventually took up product design skills, because we realized if we're building a consumer product, we have to provide great user experience. So that was a skill set in the early days. Yeah.
And you compared fundraising to sales, and I can't help but notice that you have great communication skills. I think this is also super important, isn't it? Because you need to express yourself when you're talking to users, to investors, basically to all the stakeholders in your project. Tell me, is it something you've learned along the way, or it's a natural thing for you?
No, I think it just gets better over time. I think one thing you would realize, you get so much feedback over time from investors or advisors or your employees, that you kind of figure out what makes sense and what kind of language that you have to speak to one another. Yes, I think communication goes a long way. I think I got better over time by talking to so many different investors.
So now there is Qatar, there is UAE, what's going to happen next? What are the next countries you're planning to expand your operations to?
Yeah, so our vision is to be the digital healthcare platform for GCC, right? So right now, I mean, we're the biggest player in Qatar. We just launched in UAE like a year ago. For the next year and a half, we're going to scale up our operations in UAE, and our aim is to be the biggest player there as well. I think UAE is a huge market for us. We're going to spend a whole lot of time there. Probably after that, we're going to look at Saudi. I think that's the most default market that everyone has to go after, just because of the sheer scale that they have. But yeah, eventually we want to be the GCC player for digital health.
Best of luck. I think it's time for the questions from the audience, right? I'm pretty sure you guys have a lot of questions you want to ask.
What was the effect of changing your domicile to UAE for both your business as your fundraising trajectory?
We didn't really change our domicile. We just have a business set up there so that we can actually do business with clients in UAE. I mean, I think it's just, if you're trading in Qatar, you have to set up a trading operations in Qatar similar to UAE. So I don't think we did it for any political reasons. We just did it from a day-to-day operations perspective.
But your LinkedIn says UAE.
Yeah, because I'm mostly there at the moment.
But did you see any effect? Because that's most of the question, right? Because apart from the political aspect, there might be other factors that I or we do not know. So if there's any difference you've noticed, I'd like to hear.
I think one thing that it is like, I spend a lot of time recruiting at the moment, especially building out the rest of the executive team. So I spend so much time in UAE because we have to go poach people. So one thing that you realize is like when you start scaling up, you have to get really good talent. And really good talent don't just apply to your jobs, you have to go poach them, right? So we go to UAE and I go talk to people in different companies, and sometimes we have operations in UAE and this is what we're doing. So I think that helps. So I did that UAE probably thing to actually get talking to people in UAE that I can help eventually recruit to our team.
Thank you. One question?
Thank you. Do you have any intellectual property for your product? And when you worked with 500 startups, did they request you to move these intellectual property to the United States or Cayman Islands?
Yeah, so we're initially set up in Delaware in the US. So yeah, all the IP is mainly owned by that company, the main holding company, and the holding company mainly owns operations in Qatar and UAE and all the future entities that we're going to set up in Saudi and other countries that we have. So yes, we do have intellectual property. We have a really proprietary ranking algorithm on how we sort doctors and how we do that, and a couple of other things. But yeah, answering your question, everything is owned at the US level. And it's not a requirement from 500, it's a requirement from any international investors who want to invest at a holding level. That's usually a requirement for them to do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Harris. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
I think we still have time. If you guys come up with some questions during the networking part of that event, please don't hesitate to approach Harris. I'm sure he'll gladly ask them. Thank you again for attending.